Started right now, and today we have a very special guest that specializes, use special twice, on sales. And so I really wanted to talk to her to get some insight on some of the things. And we have Abigail Tenfaltaler. Is that how you say it?
Even taller.
Ifenthaler. Okay, I almost had it. I need to practice more on names. I'm so bad at names. But thank you for joining us today. And I know a lot of people struggle with sales and things like that. So before we get started, please tell us a little bit about who you are, and then we'll kind of roll into the show there. So I know you
Okay.
have a vast amount of experience in sales and success, and you have your own company that does fractional sales teams as well, right?
As part of it, yes.
Hmm.
So I have been in the marketing and business development space over 40 years professionally. And if you add the fact that I was raised by a madman, my dad was Madison Avenue ad exec, and my mom ran a marketing business out of the home while I was growing up, I'm going to say I've been around it most of my 63 years. I
Oh.
come to it authentically. So my degree is in marketing, my master's is in strategic management with an emphasis in strategic marketing.
Mhm.
And banged my head against the corporate wall for 15 years working on both the agency side and the product management side. In 97, I moved from the tri state area down to Florida and started a promotional products business and hit seven figures my second year
Oh.
as a distributor, put me in the top 5% of the industry. I was working with American Express and Alamo Rent a Car and, Republic Services, Nova Southeastern University. I figured I was probably processing anywhere from 30 to 50 orders a week,
Mm.
and eventually hired my mother, my father, and my brother. So we were running a family business. And I did that for about 16 years. And at one point, when 2008 happened and the world was kind of going crazy, the business
Mhm.
world was trying to navigate its way through all the personal hardships that were going on. I
Mhm.
decided to go back to my marketing roots, to go back to my strategy roots, to go
Mhm.
back to helping people identify what type of marketing they needed to do and what type of sales they needed to have to actually build businesses. And I did that on my own until 2019 when I partnered with Tammy Crea. So
Mm.
Tammy is a business partner. She's in Minnesota. I'm in Tennessee.
Mm.
And we've been working together now for over 4 years. We've known each other a little over six. And
Mhm.
we met actually doing sales for coaches.
Mm.
So there's coaching names I could throw out that you would be familiar with. And we were a part of their campaign team or their evergreen team, depending upon, what type of sales we were supporting. And as
Mhm.
we sat back and we watched, we were sitting in the back of the room at a live event. We were doing back of the room sales back in 2018. We were understanding that, all of Tammy's work in marketing, she too has a marketing degree and went into graphic design and publishing and spent 40 years as an entrepreneur
Mhm.
in the marketing space. The biggest challenge that we identified that most business owners had is they were coming looking for solutions. They didn't really understand that marketing leads to sale. Marketing is not a sales tool. Marketing is a decision making tool
Mhm.
that drives sales. And so to understand that connection and the distinction has been really helpful when we work with clients.
Yeah, so you have to bring them through that journey. So you partnered up with another person. Why did you partner up? I'm just curious.
Well, strategy isn't sexy. Plain and simple, strategy isn't sexy. Nobody wants to buy the hard work, the deep questions,
Mhm.
the time it really takes to identify all of those who's, what, where, when's, whys.
Mhm.
And Tammy has always been a tactician.
Mm.
So the two of us come together really cleanly and in our very specific skill sets. I
Mhm.
provide the strategy. I help identify the audience, the message, the positioning that
Oh.
we're going to do going forward. And Tammy provides all the implementation. And then we both train on strategy, on sales. We both
Right. It
have the
sounds a lot
ability.
like my new partner, Catherine Nunez, where
Yeah.
she's the heavy on the sales, right? And I'm in the systems. I'm like, well, we're gonna do this. Whoa, slow down. We can't do it like that because
Right.
you'll get in trouble. And this is how we're doing stuff. And so we're kind of the yin and yang that kind of works well together. It is a little rough at first because everyone has slightly different terminology for their processes. And they have
Right.
to kind of meld in and make sure that everyone's on the same page. But after you get over that, it's just kind of what makes sense, you know? So I imagine it was night and day because I start working with Catherine and we're closing like a deal every single week now, whereas it used to be once a month, you know. But that's good for us. I don't know if, you know, maybe other people are like, I want 10 sales a day, but you have to be able to, provide that value and the outcome for the client. So just getting a client's one thing, then managing and maintaining the client is probably her strength, right? And
Right.
in your box there, yeah.
Yeah, it there really is a distinction. And, you know, again, Tammy and I go back to being educated in the 70s and trained in the 80s, and starting our career in the 80s around traditional marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, in the old days, right, a company would go into an ad agency, they would say, here's this bottle, help me market it.
Mm-hmm.
And the agency would, you know, jump into gear, and that we would create war rooms. We called them war rooms, and
Mm-hmm.
we would brainstorm and we would research and we would talk about, well, what's the best way? Should it be blue? Should it be clear? How do we promote? Is blue a point of difference? You know, this bottle
Mm-hmm.
has kind of a blue tint to it, right? You know,
Yeah.
where do we do labeling, right?
Yeah.
What
Certain
should be
countries
on
don't
the
like certain colors.
exactly, right?
Yeah.
You know, Nova is a perfect example. It means no go in Spanish. You know, it's one of those classic marketing, you know, case studies that we learn in college. And 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 really come back then to the client with, this is your product, but we
Mm.
have looked at all of the elements that go into successful marketing and sales, and we think you should do this. So, you know, it's more than creating a pretty picture or an ad or a, you know, commercial or whatnot. There was a lot of research. And as we get more into the social media world, right, and as we get more into other ways of marketing today, we forget that they are still marketing platforms, not sales platforms.
Mm-hmm.
So we're trying to,
So
you know, as
let's
our
take a
attention,
pause there and talk.
okay,
Just talk the difference between marketing and sales. Like what I think marketing is that part where people get to know the feel, get to know who you are and why you are, and if the information is being provided is of value to them, you know. And I'm sure that's only a very partial part of it.
but it is the foundation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Marketing is all about building visibility,
Mm-hmm.
creating authority, and
Mm-hmm.
developing a know, like, and trust. Because when somebody ends up at a sales table in a sales conversation, they should be talking about next steps. They should be overcoming objections, discussing logistics. They should be identifying if this is the right program for them now, at the right price, at the right time, whatever those you know, questions are. But
So the marketing is really about answering those things and making them feel good. Because I found out that 80% of decisions on the sales end is if they feel like it will work. It's not a technical thing. The technical stuff has to be set already. The technical stuff
right,
has to already exist. You just have to convince them. They have to feel like, yeah, this feels right, and I feel like I want to work with this person, and I feel like I will make money doing this
they feel they're
engagement.
going to get results, right? I
Yeah.
mean, that's it. And I mean, the best marketers will tell you they don't convince or compel. It's
Mm.
really all about driving a conversation that helps that decision maker say, I want to buy or I don't want to
Mhm.
buy.
So you
And
get
where
them to
marketing,
decide. Yeah, you get them to decide.
they have to buy into it, right?
Yeah.
So marketing is a decision making tool. It is a one way communication that is designed to drive decision making. Sales is a two-way communication designed to drive decision making,
Hmm.
ultimately into a yes or a no.
Right.
So I say there are two sides of the same coin because it's really important to understand better marketing leads to better sales. No marketing leads to being salesy. And
Yeah.
wrong marketing leads to trying to convince, compel, and do all of that.
Yeah, you can't really force your way into stuff because that person that's buying has to feel like it's their idea. So if it's
Exactly.
their idea, they want it. That's
Yes.
another way of saying it. I think a lot of people, they disconnect and they send you something spammy on LinkedIn, like their resume and all these bullet points. I'm doing all this stuff I don't even want to know you. Like you don't even know if I need this thing or not.
Well, and so one of the things that we use as a part of our positioning is that we stop premature selling.
Right.
Right. So in today's world, again, because, and this is what I was starting to say before, is that, the attention span gets lower and lower. We have a lower attention span than a goldfish. That's a pretty scary thought. We are bombarded with thousands and thousands of messages, tens of thousands of messages a day.
Yeah.
So the question is, how can you expect somebody to make a decision once they meet you? It's like
Yeah,
a
you have
guy
to train it.
walking
You
into.
would have to train a goldfish then, wouldn't you?
Well, yeah, I mean,
In a
I use
sense.
the analogy. It's a guy walking into a bar, going up to a girl at the bar and saying, let's go back to my place."
I'm so glad you
And
said it, not me.
well, I use it because it's
Yeah,
it
it's a
it
dating
it
analogy. It definitely is. I always,
yeah.
I said the same analogy, and my friend, she's female, says, "Why'd you say it?" Men can't say that stuff. But the idea of building a relationship, I always resort to what makes sense is an old fashioned dating. And if people don't know what old fashioned dating is, it's when you meet people or meet that person to get to know them and
Right.
you listen and you engage. You don't, versus the people are right now, they're coming to me and they're saying, they're like, "Oh, I find you very beautiful and I want to have children, the picket fence and get married." It's way too much. It's just
Yeah.
like, it's overkill.
It's
And
it's courtship.
yeah,
That's what's missing is the
old fashioned
courting.
courtship. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's definitely true. So I know that we're going to talk about sales strategies and the foundation for sales success. I think we're touching on some of that now and what makes good or not such a good client. So I think those are the three areas. But as far as sales strategy, like for LinkedIn, I have posts, I have my show, I have my direct conversations with them, and when they get on a meeting with me, I just listen and they tell me their problem and I tell them the answer. They say, "Well, I can't do all this stuff." And then they want to know how much it costs to do whatever it is they want to fix. And I said, "Well, from top down, you kind of need a system, but in order for the system to work, it's things like your profile and your brand and how you're presenting yourself is really important because that's the first set of dominoes. Content is also very important, and through time, they'll come through that channel. And I have quite a few meetings. I had like before 50 meetings a week. I don't do all. I got a business to run, so I reduced my meetings down to 20, 25 ish for the meet and greets, and I do it on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We're talking about strategy now, right? But I only do the 20-minute calls. And if they really need whatever it is that I'm providing as a service, I push them to a 40-minute conversation. And
Right.
that is a discovery call. And then my salesperson's on that call. My partner's on that call. And so far it's working pretty well, but that's very elementary. I'm sure you have more precise ways of tweaking that.
Yeah, and that's the key word is tweaking.
Mhm.
Because if you have a system that is working for you, the only thing you want to do is make it stronger, is
Mhm.
kind of look at where there are potential gaps. Are you, maybe a pre-qualification, application
Mhm.
might be a way of eliminating one of those two
Well, it depends on the
calls.
industry, but yeah.
Yeah, and here's the thing, when you're selling what's considered a high ticket offer, or something that's, I know high ticket is technically more than two, but we're going to say more than 5 grand. Most of
Yeah.
the time, and people will tell you it's not always true, but I don't necessarily believe it. Most of the time, they're doing it through strategy sessions. So the question is that how do you bring a more qualified person into a sales conversation or into a strategy session, knowing that it may be a two call close or a three call close? So the question now is that how do you bring them in with enough information so they're asking those questions so you can have an actual conversation and an air of curiosity, you suspend judgment and expectations and just say, I'm here to provide this person the best knowledge I can provide them and help them decide if this is the right path. But where a lot of people will stop is on the back end. Because again, there's maybes, there's no's, there's not nows.
Mm-hmm.
And that's happening more and more as money becomes tight, economies become uncertain. They're already investing money elsewhere in their business. So the next step is that how do you improve marketing to actually continue that sales conversation
Yeah,
more
or how do
strategically?
you continue the relationship so when they're ready, you're the person they automatically come back to.
Yeah, you want
And,
to
and,
be
and a
top
lot of
of
it's
mind.
follow up, and a lot of it's just, your content. I think one of the biggest thing that most people don't do well are proper follow ups because the CRMs and all that, they're not really designed, they're very cumbersome, and there's not a simple way to block out that reminder or how to remind or those right touch points that kind of make sense and stuff. And there's a
Right.
whole host of other services. A buddy of mine has, we have our services and they convert really well, but some people have super high end clients, for example,
Yeah.
and they have two goals: to keep them and to get more, right?
Right.
And so, not everyone's on LinkedIn like that. So if a company is over 1,000 employees and they're a C-level of a whatever particular company, they may not be a good candidate for us because they don't even look at LinkedIn like that. So there's
Right.
other sales type services that work well. I have a buddy of mine that has a service that sends like crafted gifts based on research, what
Hmm.
college they went to, whatever. And he has a 50% conversion for that. So they're just paying money to keep the client or
Right.
to get a response on it. I'm actually in a magazine, and the magazine I can send out 50 magazines out, and I'm on 7 slots of it. And I said, yeah, when someone gets a magazine with my face on it and they know me, it correlates better and it has a longer longevity besides a business card. So I guess a lot of these things are not just one strategy. It's kind of a holistic approach. Because touch points aren't always on LinkedIn. A lot of people are email people. A lot of
Yep.
people are, hey, I got a physical gift in the mail.
Right. Right.
People are a phone call people,
Right.
and so if you're touching those right people at the right time, at the right intervals, and providing value every time, it becomes more comfortable for them, I would think.
Well, and it allows them to witness you in action, so to
Hmm.
speak. How do you handle the no? How do you handle the not now? Was it all about the transaction or is it about the relationship? Right? So you're absolutely right. Follow up is key and it's still one strategy, which is I'm going to follow up until I get a hard yes or a hard no, but where you're using a multi-prong approach. And that's when things really get exciting because somebody may be on LinkedIn once a month. You
Yeah,
may have connected originally on LinkedIn, but
yeah.
email might be a better way to stay top of mind with them.
They say about touch points. How many touch points before you get a meeting or yet? I mean, what is the math on that? It keeps on changing. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, because our attention spans keep on going lower and, lower and lower. But I would tell you to, you're not going to want to hear it, but I've heard as high as 50. And we know this to be true.
My
We've,
gosh. 50
we've got a
touch points
client
before a yes or a meeting.
before a meeting
That sounds
because
ridiculous.
it does, but here's the thing. So when I first started my career, they used to say after three times you're hounding, right? And I was smart enough to know, and I said, after three times, they're just learning my name.
Yeah, they saw the email for the first time or whatever.
So, but do
Yeah.
you see the dichotomy of of ideology there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, called on Wyeth for a year of 52 calls, 52 weeks. I called once a week and talked to somebody before we got an appointment. And we're going back into the 90s. Hershey
Yeah.
Foods, I called on them for 4 years
Yeah.
and then brought them Kodak to do a joint Easter
Well, I guess
promotion.
it depends on the field and stuff. So when we go back to touch points, I'll give one example of a set of touch points. Now, for everyone, touch points don't mean call them every single
Right,
day. Don't say email. It's understanding the flow of what makes sense. Say, for example, I want to connect with someone, right? And this is a very valuable prospect partner or whatever is important for me. I may engage with their post on LinkedIn.
right,
And so if you view it, it's a touch point. If you like it, it's a touch point. If you comment, it's a touch point. And then what happens if he comments back? That's very important because you skipped a couple. Someone replying back, the value of that's much higher. And then what happens if you do that 2 times in a week? That's 8 touch points, right? Just my mic's in the way. That's 8 touch points.
right,
And then you send an invite. That's 9. And then they accept. It's 10. And then that didn't require 50, but you've upped the chances of them accepting to maybe 85, 90% versus your 30% acceptance rate or whatever you have, right? And then you move the relationship down the line a little bit. So even as low as 10 touch points, you can build a conversation. But the other problem is once you have some sort of relationship, a lot of people don't know what to ask or they don't know what's equal to the relationship. So I always say, never ask more than what your relationship is. And
right.
so
Good
what's
point.
appropriate? Yeah. So what do? When I connect, I send a welcome. That's 11, a welcome message. I do a video and I just tell them, hey, I know you're doing A, B, and C. Thank you for connecting. I really appreciate it. If you have time, feel free to just take a look at my profile. And if you see any dots connect, like send me your booking link and I'll book some time with you. Always open
Right,
for a conversation. Hopefully we'll talk soon. Have an awesome day. And in
right.
35 seconds, I did a custom video and I get a major conversion on that. I think the personalized videos, I get up to a 20% to booking right off that video. But the other people, a lot of them don't even see it.
Right.
And so you got to
Yeah. And so
realize they
that's a
don't see it.
generational thing, right? That's a time thing and a generational thing. Some people would rather read, some people would rather do a video, some people would
Mhm.
rather see a video with subtitles on it, so that they can be listening to it in a subway station without volume.
Or watching it. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's
Right.
true.
Or
Yeah.
yeah. So, again, just understanding that there is no one form of reach out that works better than any other. The form of reach out that works best for a client is what his customers need to receive. And that's,
Right.
again, it's not about us, it's about the clients we work with.
Yeah. It's where are they at? How do they communicate?
Exactly.
So if they
Exactly.
connected on LinkedIn and they just don't ignore your replies, your message to them, your welcome message. Well, maybe they're not ignoring you. Maybe they just don't know anything about LinkedIn messaging. Maybe you should
Right.
roll that into an email at some point. So even if you did a video on LinkedIn, you could at least mention that and connect that conversation saying, yeah, we did connect about 3 weeks ago, and I did send you a personalized video. Feel free to check it out. I just want to say thanks for,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
I mean, some things end up at spam, just like email. Some things, I mean, I've got a Facebook Messenger, right, where
mhm,
it's requests as well as my inbox. So
mhm,
there will be things that end up in my request part that I don't see on a daily basis because I don't think of looking at it. I'm too busy
mhm.
looking at my inbox. And again, if you have somebody who's reaching out in Navigator, but you're not opening Navigator, but you're opening, regular Messenger on LinkedIn, it's that you can't assume that just because you send something that somebody's going to get it,
Right, right.
right? That's the other assumption is you might be communicating with somebody and their emails end up in spam. In their spam.
Well, I know all about my business, so I don't want to talk about my business. I want to know how you are accelerating on sales. So you have a fractional business. So tell me the ins and outs of that. And we had a pre-conversation on another, for commission only and the advantages of this versus that. I'll be honest with you, I'm a LinkedIn expert. I am not a sales expert. I'm a relationship person. So I don't even like selling. So that's why I handed it over to Catherine,
Right.
so she can get those logistics done. But I really want to understand what it takes to be successful in sales, especially for a lot of these solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, companies that have, other people that work for them, but maybe not employees.
Right.
That's the whole economy. That's a very, very large portion of the economy, and including entrepreneurs that have companies under, 50 employees that as well.
Yeah. So I would tell you that, sales happens one of a couple of ways, right? Either the owner of the business is the primary salesperson and he or she may have support around appointment setting to bring the person to the sales conversation or around follow up afterward, right? That's one way. Another way is to hire a sales company to do the work. And a lot of times, if you're doing a big event, if you've got, 3-day live events where you're going to be making an offer, you've got a couple of hundred people in the event, you want back of the room sales. So
Mhm.
you can hire an event team that will help you even take that program into evergreen, meaning non-launch at some point. You can bring in a salesperson of your own. So there's, pros and
Well,
cons to all of these.
I already know the cost of bringing the salespeople on your own, and most people don't want to do that. They're just, for example, if someone is a really good salesperson, you want to bring a full salesperson, they're going to cost a lot. I got a buddy that's sales for cloud stuff. He pulls in $250,000 a year, right? You think he wants to sell someone else's stuff? No, he's not. So
Right.
I think the hot ticket item is really, how do I get a fractional sales team to take components of the sales or onboarding or both off the table, and you may
Well,
not be.
I was going to talk about the fourth way is to hire a company like ours, which does fractional selling. And so
Oh,
what that means is that you have dedicated salespeople who are trained in your voice, trained in your programs or your services. And here's the thing, whether you're getting 2 calls or 20 calls a week, they're there because they are earning commission on each sale. You are not hiring them, training them, or managing them. We do that process for you. And for that, we charge a monthly fee,
mhm.
but it's still less than you going and bringing on a sales trainer company to find you a salesperson, because you're paying
Yeah.
that company basically like a recruiter. You're paying that company to find somebody who
Yeah,
may
I
or
feel
may
that
not
model
work.
that only works in certain situations nowadays. That larger model, because you have to have X amount of cash, X amount of people at one time, versus getting a fractional team. Whatever of these high value services, whenever you bring someone on as a client, you have to service that client. So
Right.
they can't take on but so many sales anyway. It's somewhat finite because of the quality control mechanisms in there.
Well, exactly. And, a high performance salesperson is a little bit like a thoroughbred racehorse. You
Hmm.
can't train them the same way you train a horse that you bought at auction to, take kids out on rides, right?
Hmm.
They're just a slightly different breed of human. And so they like the hunt, they like the kill, they like the success, and they're really usually not great at anything else. Like that is their skill set. So,
Hmm.
the challenge you were asking about taking on the onboarding, that's really not a salesperson's job other than to train the salesperson to provide the expectation of what will happen next. Once the
Hmm.
client says yes, what happens next? How is the credit card
Yeah.
run? What kind of welcome email are they going to get? How do they access a portal? What's going to be the frequency of calls or conversations? So the salesperson knows how to direct them into the next set of expectations. But onboarding and then program
Yeah,
delivery
those
are
are, well, I guess I
different
was
things.
thinking, yeah, you're absolutely right. I was thinking about sales as a business function, onboarding as a business function. And
Right.
so, how they relate is what you're saying is the salesperson has to know the logistics
That
and
right.
of those mechanisms, and just to ease the answer the questions for the prospect. So when they transition, they're more aware of what's coming up next, and makes that
Right.
transition from sales to onboarding a little easier, because they're more aware of
Well,
the steps
and
they
they're
have to
passing a
provide.
baton, right? I
Yeah.
mean, there's a physical baton, like in a relay race, where you have an appointment setter potentially who's passing the baton to the salesperson. You have
Mm-hmm.
a salesperson who's passing the baton then to the next step, that onboarding step, who
Mm-hmm.
may or may not be the owner of a company. It may be a series of coaches. It may be, a customer service department, right? I mean, there's
Mm-hmm.
so that where the salesperson, where it's important for them to understand is all of the things that are going to affect the sale,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? How did that person come in and how does that person go out of the salesperson world? And that's a part of, a good salesperson wants to know that. They want
Mm-hmm.
to be invested. They don't have to be an employee of a company they could be a good contractor to the company to be invested in, well, this isn't working. Why is this not working?
Mm-hmm.
Because what happens also a lot of times when you outsource your sales is that person is the one that gets the phone call. Hey, Troy, it's Abigail. You took my money a week ago, but I've not received a single email,
Mm-hmm.
right? Hey, Troy, it's Abigail. I know Susie scheduled a call for us, but I can't make it because it's our number that's out there. It's our
Mm-hmm.
email that's out there.
Mm-hmm.
And we
Yeah, they're the
often
first
can't,
line of defense.
we can become exactly a point of contact.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, that's, and again, we can lose clients by not having those answers.
Yeah, it seems like, if I'm understanding this correctly, I'm just listening to the first time. If you are to take on a client and help them with their sales, the first thing is to understand their existing process, how to improve their process by any of the gaps,
Right.
and then any ancillary items. So once those calls are happening, they make sense. So do you guys do like right now? I'm doing the meet and greet calls, right? Just to help people in general. And if they ask me, oh, I kind of need this thing, and I kind of pre-qualify them and I move them to the next meeting. Do you guys do both of those sets of meetings for the introduction and I
We
guess it doesn't, it depends on the customer, right?
it depends on the customer, and the short answer is we can. There's also other ways of handling that meet and greet, excuse me, versus that targeted sales conversation. So,
Mm-hmm.
what we do, Tammy and I, again, we've been in the industry long enough. We follow the trends. We look at best practices and say, well, you can follow this structure. You don't
Mm-hmm.
need, everybody doesn't have to be funneled into the same structure. It's a lot to do with are, where are they in their business? How do they want to approach it? And what's the next thing, right? So you've
Mm-hmm.
got all this outreach that's happening. You have some of it is designed to build visibility. So it's lead gen. It's really focused on, I need more cold people in my world,
Mm-hmm.
right? Troy needs more cold people in his world. You
Mm-hmm.
can do that through social media outreach. You can
Mm-hmm.
do that through joining groups on social media. You can do that
Mm-hmm.
through ads. You can do
Yeah,
that
we do
through
a lot
email,
of those
networking,
things.
speaking, a
I
lot of things.
realize just on my profile, I'm probably get about 20,000 views a week. And it's not, it's on the post, it's on
Yeah.
the connections, it's on the direct messages, and it's, ancillary from email, and I'm not trying to, because if they're not qualified, it'd be a terrible client. And speaking of that, what makes a good client?
Wow. I mean, that's the $64,000 question. That, you know, uh, the
Well,
best,
because I had to release a lot of my
yeah.
clients
Well,
because
we've all had
because
to
they didn't
fire
really
one or
fit my
two.
model,
Right.
and so I have a couple of things like for me. I love clients that like offering value to other people, not valuable to them, valuable to them as sales, but value to other people. And that is, so when they come to me, they say, yeah, I'm not getting any connections to this. This is a business problem. It's a profile problem. It's one of those, right? So let's take a look
Right.
at you, talk about your business. Okay, this is what you're doing. And then you realize, well, maybe his audience is not, through my experience, that type of audience may not be on LinkedIn or active on LinkedIn, or your profile sucks. Nobody wants to connect with you, you know,
Right.
Eh,
Right.
you
Well,
know,
and I would tell you that the number one thing that makes for a good client is being coachable.
Hmm,
Whether you're selling a coaching service, a consulting service,
it's a good
whatever,
point.
you have to be willing to trust the the best practice, the recommendation, the person that you just hired to bring on. So you
Yeah.
have to be willing to, I always say if you're coachable, if you trust the process and you do the work, you're
Yeah.
going to be a great client.
Yeah.
So that's the relationship is we can't be a win-win if you're not going to
Yeah. A
respect
lot of clients
what
are
you're
just not,
saying.
appropriate because they don't want to do any work. They want to
Right,
hire it out and they don't want to do any work. And that's okay for certain businesses, but certain other businesses are not. You have to put in the work. Like you think I like, I do like actually posting, but not everyone likes to put out content every single day.
right,
Not everyone likes to take the calls and so they can personally talk to the owner of the company. What is the most impact I can make in a shorter amount of time? And so things like I do welcome videos I'll pick a couple of people and I say I'm gonna do a specific video for these people when I reach out to them on the DM. You
right,
know, so we may have to figure out like what's their day to day process in their business, and then how can they get a half hour slice and make sure they do what they need to do that you're coaching them on. Um,
right,
because a lot of people they'll listen, they'll say, "Yeah, I'm gonna do all that," and they just don't do it.
right. And there's an excuse, you either find a way or you find an excuse. I mean,
Mhm.
there's not that life doesn't happen, not that things don't
Yeah, but
happen, but
but things
you can
happen.
tell.
It should be like I don't know, 1 out of 10. Like my kid's sick, or so, like, yeah, okay, you got to take care of that, or something happened, my internet went out. Those things do happen, but not
Right.
all the time. A lot of us, and then 90% of the issues are the people scheduling issues. Like they don't put it on the calendar and they just, they kind of go on their day. They don't really concentrate and they don't really want to be winners in the area they are. Anyway, preaching to the choir. So we also talked about the different kind of fractional sales teams. And I mentioned to you, I said, oh yeah, we had a conversation and they have a sales team. They take a percentage of the sales. And you say, well, sometimes it's not a good idea. Why is that? Sometimes, and it's not all the time, but we talked about the personality types that are doing the sales. And I think we,
Right.
we just, oh, let's wait for the show and talk about that.
Well, we were talking about the length of time.
Hmm.
So that again, regardless of who's on the phone at the end of the day,
Hmm.
the length of time is determined by your marketing, not by your sales activities. So what you want to do when you bring people in is not start selling them right away.
Hmm.
That often is going to bring down the numbers. Whether, again, if you're answering the phone or a fractional team is answering the phone or a sales guy down the in the next state is answering a phone for you. It's
Hmm.
important to understand that we can't get into this premature selling that's rampant in the industry. It
Right.
takes
Right.
time.
Yeah, that's
And
why my first meeting is just answering the questions. And
right.
they usually say, yeah, tell me about what you do, Troy. I kind of sounds like I need that. And I
Yeah.
said, well, it's a long conversation, but I just give them the high level. Basically, this is how it works. And if interested, I'll give you a link, and we'll book a strategy session on that. And we take it
Right.
a real step because the worst thing we want is to pick up a client that's the wrong client because it could be very difficult.
Yes,
You got
it
someone
can.
that has no boundaries, or they're gonna and your contracts have to be agreements. Some people, I have agreements, I don't have contracts, but your whatever they are, they have to be right. And if you don't do it right, then people, sometimes I found where people find a loophole and just say, oh, I decided what do they call it when they retract the charge on the card?
Um,
Um, uh,
they charge back.
Charge back, yeah. They'll just try to do a charge back after you do the work. And you got some people out there. But what I was really asking is, you have a service that you take a percentage and you charge monthly for, right? So you have
Yeah.
a minimum monthly charge for
Yep.
maintenance and management, but you also have a percentage that you're taking. One thing I ran across, or commission only. And you said there's sometimes the vast amount of difference between a commission only and an established sales process that's a hybrid model. But I think you
Yeah.
have a
Well,
hybrid model. Yeah.
actually, I think where I was going with that was, we have a lot of experience bringing commission only in for a couple of different things that we've done in the past.
Oh, okay.
And if a commission only person is not experiencing success right away, they're gone.
Okay.
And
So they
it
may
can
push a
take,
sale that's not appropriate, that takes up a bad client, or make promises that don't
because
exist within the plan.
that's
So
where they're making their money, right?
yeah.
So it's important for them to get to traction quickly. If they feel the marketing is bringing in the wrong leads, they're going to lose interest quickly.
Mhm.
If they may not necessarily take the additional amount of time to understand the background, right? Those things that happen before the sales conversation and the things that happen after the sales conversation.
Yeah, they don't slow
Because,
down to speed up. They don't slow
correct,
down to speed up. Yeah. So they're not taking the time to comprehend. They just want a quick
right,
conversions right
yeah,
away, regardless of the outcome of the prospect, which is not a good thing.
right.
Our goal is to look after the client and make sure they're converting, or they're the right fit and they're doing the things that they need to do.
And I mean, and that's not true across the board. It's just,
Mhm.
there's a lot of people who say they can be commission only, and they'll come on and get bored very quickly. They're not trained very well, and they really don't
Well, how
care
well could
about,
they be trained? I
yeah,
mean,
I'm,
if
it's
you really think about it, I mean, how much training are you going to do if you're not getting paid for it? I don't know.
right, exactly. I mean, that's part of the philosophy. So that's where the management fee and the monthly fee, the onboarding and the a monthly fee come in, is it
Mhm.
allows your team, it allows you to bring on better people, to train those people, pay them a slightly higher commission so that they can do the job when those calls are coming through. The other thing that we do, and again, sales teams will do, is they'll bring on more than one person. So a lot of times a small business owner will say, well, I don't have enough business for two, so I'm only going to bring in one. Guess what happens when that person goes home? Guess what happens when that person takes vacation? Guess what
Mhm.
happens when that person is sick? If they're commission only, the sales goes back to the owner of the business or whomever
Yeah.
was doing that sale ahead of time. Where
Yeah.
when you have more than one person, you don't have that responsibility back
Yeah,
on
you
your
have a
shoulders.
lateral handoff if needed. So it's a safety
Correct.
net there.
Yeah,
Definitely makes
exactly.
sense. Well, it sounds really awesome, what you're doing there. It sounds a very helpful and needed niche there. I want to thank you. We're kind of coming to the top of my time limit here, but I want to ask you, how can people reach out to you? And I do have the slides that I'll bring in on the video on there, and then on the live I'll add it to as well. But I think you have a calendar link there. Is that
Yeah,
right?
I do. I have a calendar link. You can go to my website, which is savvysalesstrategy.com. We are on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I actually have an email address in my contact along with a phone number. So, if somebody is really trying to figure out their sales and marketing continuum, if you will, and where there are gaps, we're a good place to start.
Mhm.
Because whether you want to ultimately bring on a team, or you want to be doing events, or you want to be, doing everything online, there's ways of doing it. But if you start with trying to solve specific problems, you never get the full strategy for growth. And
Yeah, and it seems like you have an obtainable price mark too. So
yes,
your cost, and I've seen a lot of different teams, and we've been reviewing a lot, and they do have some commission only. They have others that are 10K a month, and so there's a big spectrum. So you would be a really good place to start and experience that sales avenue and to get some success, even if they wanted to do something different later on. Definitely.
yeah, exactly. I mean, we are a great point of contact in the beginning. We're a great point of contact when you need that additional support. And you're right. We think our pricing is more than fair.
Yes. Awesome. Well, thank you, Abigail. I do appreciate you. And we'll be talking soon as well. Thanks.
Troy, thank you again.
All right. Bye.